Well, folks, here we are, Unity Alpha, just outside of Oxford. It's their Kidlington branch. So, behind me you might see a familiar shape, Alfa Romeo Giulia. I've always suspected that the sweet spot in the Giulia range might actually be the Veloce. It's 280 horsepower, shares the chassis with the Quadrifoglio, and is considerably cheaper. Runs at about 45 grand as opposed to a reasonably spec'd Quadrifoglio in towards the 80 grand mark. So they very kindly lent me the keys whilst my own car is in having a little bit of work, and I'm going to take it down the road just to see whether there are any glaring differences in the cars, and so I can speak on some sort of authority. I've just jumped out of the Quadrifoglio. I've just grabbed the keys for this Veloce, and it's wonderful in this white. Walk around the car, let you have a little look about it, but it's all familiar territory for those of you that follow the channel. Let's have a look inside. So I've always loved contrasting interiors. Now, you don't get much choice, certainly in the Quadrifoglio as far as interiors goes, but there are other choices as far as the Veloce. The Quad initially has got this Alcantara insert. I have to say, this black perforated interior looks really, really well. Of course, still got the DNA switch in there. No race option on this, but to be honest, I rarely use a race option even in a Quadrifoglio. I like to have some sort of protections. Flappy paddles, all the same there. A leather rimmed and still flat bottom steering wheel, and all really nice. Just very, very familiar territory. As you'd expect from the Giulia, plenty of room in the rear, and this one has the 5th seat option. The 2017 Quadrifoglio that I have, of course, is a 4-seater. They didn't add the 5th seat until a couple of years later. And there you go, the boot, fairly cavernous, all the way down through to the back. So no surprises there. Again, a lovely looking thing. So 19-inch rims. It looks like it's a single caliper at the back here compared to the Quadrifoglio's extra little handbrake caliper. But it's 19-inch rims. Look really well. The telly dials really suit this. Certainly with the black alloys, with the polished bits and bobs, really setting it off. So pretty from any angle. It looks a little cleaner, if anything, than the Quad. The Quad certainly has the kind of the nostrils and the bonnet, and it's sporting obviously the active aero spoiler down below here. So pretty from any angle, but it's the sheer value for money and the dynamic drive that makes all the difference to these cars. So let's get it down the road and see what the initial first impressions are. All very familiar territory. Of course, a 4-cylinder engine, turbocharged in this one, and it just feels like being home. So let's get that the radio off. I believe on the newer ones we've got Apple CarPlay as well, so slightly different to mine, but it's plugged Apple CarPlay, and we'll get ourselves up the road. So smooth. So initially, it's quiet, it's nice, it's in normal mode, kickdown is nice, and it has the 8-speed box, just like we've got in the Quadrifoglio. So let's get it into dynamic, and yes, it sharpens up the steering and the suspension. Into N, and of course the earlier cars, it's a physical dented switch, where what we have here is you've got to hold it in position to change it. So this is in advanced efficiency mode. Okay, over 500 miles, they've done 30 miles to the gallon over 1,300 miles. They've done 33. So probably spiritedly driven, I would have thought, because as you saw in my Quadrifoglio, I've kind of averaged about 29. So here we go, into dynamic. There's the end of the signs, putting it down. And you know, there's plenty there. It doesn't have the frightening shove in the back that you get in the Quadrifoglio. However, I think that pushing this car on around country roads, you're probably going to extract more of its 280 horsepower than you will just literally than the Quadrifoglio. It's virtually impossible to extract all 500 horsepower out of the QV and make it feel relatively safe in the process. So, you know, a very quick drive. Yes, let's do kick down again. And you know what? She goes. It's dynamically, it feels there's a little bit, it's sharp. For those of you that are not familiar with the Giulia range, the steering response is something you steer it almost with your mind. There is so little movement on day-to-day driving around the roads on the steering wheel. The rack is really, really quick. That gives it its Italian kind of flair. It's kind of Ferrari derived kind of chassis. You know, the same engineering team worked on the 458 Speciale. That worked certainly tuning the Giulia platform for the Quadrifoglio badge. It's quiet. Let's get it back into N mode. I believe in these later cars as well that the window thickness is slightly increased, and I have no complaints here about the road noise, and hopefully you can hear me quite easily over that. The chassis feels tight. It's a joy. It's an absolute joy. So as a alternative, say, to an M340, certainly an M330, it's definitely worth considering. That's a thumbs up from me. So let's see what it's like out of this junction. Yep, all good. Absolutely all good. Yeah, a Veloce at kind of half the price of a new Quadrifoglio, or you could buy a brand new one for the price of a used Quadrifoglio. So it certainly ranks up there. The only drawback, if it is a drawback at all, is that it's just not a Quadrifoglio. It doesn't have that final 10% of aggression. It doesn't have that extra 200 horsepower that the Quadrifoglio has. But I think probably a well-driven Veloce will keep with almost anything on the road in the real world. Do you need the extra horsepower that the Quadrifoglio will give you? No, you don't. But I have to say, it's really nice to know it's there. The Quadrifoglio is iconic, it's special, and I think worth considering even on the used market instead of something like this. I think the Veloce, whilst very, very nice, just lacks that spine-tingling excitement that only a Quadrifoglio can give you. So it has answered a question, certainly as far as I'm concerned. Is it worth considering instead of a Quadrifoglio? And I'd say ultimately not. I'd still prefer a used quad over a new Veloce. I'm sad to say it, but that is the truth. However, if you've bought a Veloce, it's a beautiful car. It certainly feels 80% Quadrifoglio, but it's like all those Boxster drivers out there that it'll never be a 911, and that's, I think, in the same situation that we have here. It's a lovely car, but it isn't the granddaddy. So on that note, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again. All the best now. Bye-bye.